This is the moment a convicted sex trafficker held Congress hostage with the most audacious clemency scheme in modern American history. At 10:47 a.m. on Monday, February 9th, 2026, Ghislaine Maxwell appeared virtually from her Texas federal prison camp for what was supposed to be a routine House Oversight Committee deposition. Instead, she delivered a calculated extortion message directly to President Donald Trump that has thrown Washington into constitutional chaos and exposed the complete breakdown of justice system integrity under this administration. Maxwell, serving 20 years for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse minors, refused to answer a single question from lawmakers. But through her attorney, David Oscar Marcus, she sent Trump an unmistakable quid pro quo offer that has stunned even the most cynical Washington observers. The message was simple and chilling. Grant me clemency, and I will publicly absolve both you and Bill Clinton of any Epstein-related wrongdoing. The brazenness of this clemency for testimony scheme has created a constitutional crisis that goes far beyond the Epstein scandal. This is a convicted felon attempting to buy her freedom by offering to lie under oath to protect powerful men, while Congress watches helplessly as their oversight authority crumbles before a criminal willing to trade fabricated exonerations for presidential favors. If successful, this scheme would establish the precedent that wealthy, connected criminals can escape justice by offering to clear presidents of scandals, turning the clemency power into a marketplace for judicial corruption. The virtual deposition itself was a study in calculated manipulation. Sources who witnessed the closed-door session describe Maxwell as appearing robotic and unrepentant, dressed in a brown prison-issued shirt and sitting at a sterile conference table with only a bottle of water. When Chairman James Comer began questioning, Maxwell immediately invoked her Fifth Amendment rights, repeating the phrase, "I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence," with mechanical precision. But this was not legitimate constitutional protection. This was performance theater designed to create the appearance of legal propriety while Maxwell's attorney delivered the real message to Trump. The timing of Maxwell's clemency gambit was no accident. Her deposition came just days after the House Oversight Committee successfully forced both Bill and Hillary Clinton to agree to testify about their Epstein connections after threatening them with contempt of Congress charges. Maxwell's legal team clearly calculated that offering to exonerate both Clinton and Trump would appeal to politicians across party lines, creating bipartisan pressure for clemency. The strategy reveals the sophisticated political calculation behind this extortion scheme. By offering to clear Clinton as well as Trump, Maxwell positioned herself as the solution to a problem that threatens both parties. Her message through Marcus was explicit. Both President Trump and President Clinton are innocent of any wrongdoing. Ms. Maxwell alone can explain why, and the public is entitled to that explanation. The constitutional implications are staggering. Maxwell is essentially offering to commit perjury in exchange for clemency, promising to provide false testimony that would exonerate powerful men regardless of the actual facts. This represents the complete inversion of the justice system, where truth becomes subordinate to political convenience and presidential favor. If Trump accepts this offer, he would be using the clemency power to purchase favorable testimony, turning the constitutional pardon authority into a tool for obstruction of justice. The immediate congressional reaction revealed the depth of shock even among lawmakers accustomed to constitutional violations. Democratic Representative Melanie Stansbury captured the essence of the scheme. She is telling Donald Trump through her deposition that she is trying to buy her clemency. The statement was not hyperbole, but literal description of extortion unfolding in real time before a congressional committee. Republican Chairman James Comer, despite his partisan alignment with Trump, called Maxwell's silence very disappointing and stated clearly that he does not believe she should be granted any type of immunity or clemency. The bipartisan revulsion suggests this clemency extortion crosses lines that even Trump allies find unacceptable. But the most revealing reaction came from Representative Suhas Subramaniam, who described Maxwell's demeanor during the brief video call as demonstrating she was completely unrepentant for her crimes against children. This detail exposes the moral vacuum at the heart of Maxwell's scheme. She shows no remorse for facilitating the sexual abuse of minors, but calculated how that same criminality could be leveraged to secure presidential clemency through political manipulation. The backstory of how Maxwell reached this point reveals systematic manipulation of the justice system. After her conviction, Maxwell was initially held at a higher security Florida facility, but last summer she was transferred to a minimum security Texas prison camp immediately after participating in an unusual interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Blanche, who previously served as Trump's personal attorney, conducted this interview despite obvious conflicts of interest and the appearance of impropriety. The timing suggests Maxwell's legal team began strategizing the clemency approach months ago, using Blanche as an intermediary to signal cooperation while positioning for this moment. The transfer to a lower security facility was likely part of building the case for clemency, demonstrating Maxwell's supposed rehabilitation and cooperation with authorities. But this cooperation was never about seeking justice for victims or exposing the truth about Epstein's network. It was about creating leverage for exactly the kind of clemency extortion scheme that unfolded Monday morning. Trump's response to Maxwell's offer will define his presidency's relationship with justice and constitutional governance. He has previously indicated openness to pardoning Maxwell, telling reporters he is allowed to give her a pardon, but claiming he has not thought about it. However, Trump's track record of using clemency for political purposes suggests Maxwell's offer may find a receptive audience. The president has consistently demonstrated willingness to abuse constitutional powers when personal interests are at stake, and Maxwell's offer to clear him of Epstein allegations provides exactly the kind of personal benefit Trump values above institutional integrity. The legal community's reaction has been swift and unequivocal. Former federal prosecutors point out that accepting Maxwell's offer would constitute a clear quid pro quo that violates both the spirit and letter of clemency authority. The Constitution grants presidents broad clemency powers, but those powers cannot be used to purchase favorable testimony or obstruct congressional investigations. If Trump grants Maxwell clemency in exchange for her promised testimony exonerating him, it would represent impeachable abuse of the pardon power. The precedent implications extend far beyond this single case. If Maxwell successfully purchases clemency through promised false testimony, every future criminal with information about political figures would understand the pathway to freedom. Wealthy, connected defendants would know that offering to exonerate powerful politicians provides a route around conviction and punishment. The justice system would become a marketplace where clemency goes to the highest bidder willing to provide the most valuable political protection. The victim's advocate's response has been heartbreaking and illuminating. Jennifer Freeman, an attorney representing Epstein survivors, expressed devastation at Maxwell's continued manipulation. "The damage has already been done," Freeman said, referring not just to Maxwell's original crimes, but to her ongoing efforts to escape accountability while showing no remorse for the children she helped abuse. The survivors have watched Maxwell use every privilege available to wealthy criminals, from high-powered legal representation to political connections to now direct appeals for presidential clemency. Maxwell's scheme also exposes the complete breakdown of normal political constraints on presidential behavior. Previous presidents understood that clemency for high-profile criminals carried enormous political costs and required compelling justifications related to justice rather than personal benefit. Trump has shattered those norms, using clemency for political allies and considering it for anyone willing to provide personal or political advantages. Maxwell's team clearly calculated that Trump's willingness to abuse clemency power made this extortion scheme viable. The international implications are equally troubling. Foreign leaders and justice systems around the world are watching an American president consider clemency for a convicted child sex trafficker in exchange for favorable testimony. This demolishes American credibility in demanding accountability for human trafficking and corruption in other countries. How can the United States criticize authoritarian leaders who protect criminals when the American president contemplates exactly that behavior? Congressional Democrats are preparing for the constitutional showdown this clemency scheme would create. If Trump grants Maxwell clemency in exchange for her promised testimony, House Democrats will likely pursue immediate impeachment proceedings for abuse of the pardon power. The evidence would be unusually clear since Maxwell's attorney explicitly stated the quid pro quo on the record during a congressional deposition. Unlike previous Trump scandals that relied on interpretation of ambiguous statements, this clemency extortion was proposed openly before Congress with clear terms and explicit expectations. The political calculations for Trump are complex and revealing. Maxwell's offer provides potential relief from Epstein-related scrutiny that has dogged his presidency, but accepting it would confirm his willingness to prioritize personal protection over justice for trafficking victims. For a president already facing multiple legal challenges and declining approval ratings, the clemency scheme offers short-term benefit at the cost of long-term credibility and constitutional legitimacy. The mechanics of Maxwell's legal strategy reveal sophisticated criminal thinking applied to political manipulation. Her attorneys clearly studied Trump's clemency patterns, noting his willingness to pardon political allies, business associates, and media figures who provided favorable coverage. By positioning Maxwell as someone who could provide valuable political protection rather than just seeking mercy, her legal team crafted an appeal designed to trigger Trump's transactional approach to governance. The House Oversight Committee now faces an impossible situation. They cannot compel truthful testimony from someone offering to lie in exchange for clemency, but they also cannot allow the oversight process to be held hostage by clemency extortion. Chairman Comer's statement that he opposes clemency for Maxwell provides some hope that congressional Republicans might resist the scheme, but Trump's influence over the party suggests institutional resistance may crumble under presidential pressure. The Justice Department's role in this crisis remains murky and troubling. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's previous interview with Maxwell created the foundation for this clemency scheme, yet DOJ has remained silent about the obvious conflict of interest and appearance of coordination between Maxwell's legal team and Trump administration officials. The department that should be investigating clemency extortion appears compromised by its own officials' involvement in creating the conditions for exactly this kind of corruption. The historical precedent for this situation is virtually non-existent in American governance. While presidents have previously used clemency controversially, the explicit exchange of clemency for fabricated testimony crosses lines that even the most corrupt previous administrations avoided. Maxwell's scheme would establish clemency as a tool for purchasing false testimony, fundamentally altering the constitutional balance between executive clemency power and the justice system's pursuit of truth. The media coverage of Maxwell's clemency gambit has exposed another dimension of institutional breakdown. While major outlets have reported the basic facts, the full implications of clemency extortion have been underplayed in favor of treating this as just another political controversy. The normalization of constitutional violations has reached the point where explicit extortion of the clemency power generates coverage comparable to routine political disputes, rather than recognition of the unprecedented assault on justice system integrity this scheme represents. The international criminal justice community is watching this case as a test of American commitment to combating human trafficking and protecting trafficking victims. Maxwell's conviction was seen as a rare example of accountability for high-level trafficking enablers, but her clemency scheme threatens to undermine that progress. If wealth and political connections can ultimately overcome trafficking convictions through presidential clemency, it signals to traffickers worldwide that sufficient resources and political manipulation can provide escape routes from justice. The timeline for Trump's decision on Maxwell's clemency offer will likely determine the immediate future of his presidency's relationship with constitutional governance. If he accepts her offer quickly, it demonstrates calculated willingness to prioritize personal protection over justice for trafficking victims. If he delays or ultimately rejects the offer, it may reflect recognition that this particular clemency scheme crosses lines that even his most loyal supporters cannot defend. But given Trump's consistent pattern of prioritizing personal interests over institutional integrity, Maxwell's sophisticated appeal to his transactional worldview may prove irresistible regardless of the constitutional consequences.